Not only do I overthink the feedback that people give me, but I've overthought how I go about asking for and actioning feedback. So if you need help with that, this video might be for you. I owe so much of the progression in my career to people who gave me feedback. I emailed people and they came back to me with really clear instructions on what I can do to improve. And if I didn't have those people around, I would have taken far longer to get where I am now. For me, I think I want it because there is a tunnel vision that I have with my creative work. It's just me working on this thing. It's just my ideas, my background, my history, my story that's making a piece of creative work. I really like the idea of unlocking what someone else thinks and their experience and their story, because usually it's vastly different, and often it's someone who's more experienced than me that might be able to tell me what direction I'm going in that's right and wrong. All right, you're now convinced that this is an important thing. How are we going to get out of your comfort zone? Here we go with step one. Put a fence around it. I'm guessing if you've ever sent your song or your poster or your drawing or whatever it is to someone and you've said, hey, what do you think of this? And they probably might respond with, yeah, it's good. And then you're both disappointed because it was a bit of a missed opportunity to get what you wanted out of it. You didn't put a fence around it, you didn't establish rules, and you didn't communicate what you actually wanted to talk about. You've got a pretty good idea of what you like and what you don't like about the finished product, or what you want to really discuss when you're sending it to someone for feedback. For example, I finish a song and I've mixed and produced it. I got to the end of it and I kind of think, well, I'm pretty happy with it, but I don't like how the drums sound. If I'm going to go and ask for feedback, that's what I want to go and ask someone what they think of specifically. So I'm going to say, hey, I want you to have a listen to this song and see what you reckon of the drums. Is it just me or is there something off with it? That's the really important thing. They're focusing on the thing that you want to talk about. Because the other risk that you run by just asking, hey, what do you think of this, really ambiguously, they might poke holes in all the things you don't want them to look at. And then you don't learn anything and maybe you feel worse. For example, if I wanted to get feedback on this video, I obviously know that I'm recording this on an iPhone and I'm doing the best that I can with the lighting and stuff that I have involved. If I just said, hey, what do you think of this? How can I improve it? Someone might say, well, you need to get a better camera, obviously. But it's only obvious to me because I'm here recording and pressing the buttons on the thing. But I could actually, stipulate, hey, I know that I've recorded this on a phone and, I'm trying to do this on a budget. How could I do that better with what I have? You've established the rules for the conversation. That's going to make things so much easier for you to understand how to move forward. Step 2, brace for impact. If you're early on in your creative career or project or hobby, whatever it is, there is a tendency that we're going to get very emotionally attached to the work that we're doing. And that's not a bad thing. I think it's a really good thing to be really emotionally involved in what you're doing. The thing is it's very hard to disconnect yourself from the finished work. So when you're being vulnerable and asking someone for feedback, you're probably going to get it, and there's going to be a very emotional reaction to that. If someone says, I don't really like that part of it, it's going to probably frighten you. It's probably going to shock you. It's probably going to upset you or embarrass you. There's going to be a lot of emotions if there's a huge disconnect between what you think of the finished work and what someone else might think of it. There could be a huge gap there. And you've got to be prepared for that to happen. Because if you're not, it can really shock you, it can really upset you, and it can stop you from moving forward. And when it comes to feedback, that's not the point. We're trying to make this better, and we're asking someone their valid opinion. So what you need to do is expect someone to be quite critical. Inversely, it turns out you can actually really undersell yourself and change your expectations there. For example, I had someone send me a podcast that they really weren't that confident about. They wanted me to work on it and said, what do you think of this? And I was amazed by it. And I had to come back to them and say, this is exactly what you need to be doing. It's perfect. It's awesome. It's great. And funnily enough, me doing that is something that, gives them something to disagree with, for them to go, oh, that can't be true. There's probably going to be a gap in what you expect is good, what is bad. That's okay. So just brace yourself. The third point, react in a padded room. What I mean by that is, of course, we've just discussed that you're probably going to feel some emotions. Feel them, react to them, but do it in a really safe way. If someone says to you, I really don't like what you've done with this thing, I don't really think it reflects well on the overall thing, you really need to improve this. You might go, what the fuck are you talking about? That's my favourite bit. I love that bit. How dare you? Why would you possibly say... And you have every right to feel very emotional about this. What you wouldn't do is respond back with that response. You would find healthier ways to feel those emotions. Scream into a pillow, vent to your wife, vent to your mum and dad, vent to people that don't really have a consequence in this project, but can, be a support network for you. It's a really handy thing to do, is to feel those emotions and get through that part, because then we get to the important part, which is the next step. Think really carefully about what you're going to do next. Once those emotions are gone, the beauty is you've got a clear mind now, and you can actually go in and start taking some actions on the advice that you've been given. Let's go back to that drum example again, where they say, look, I don't really like the drums here. Let's just say they sound really muddy and they don't really fit the song very well. That sounds pretty harsh, but once I've reacted to that and felt a certain way about that sort of response, I can actually go back and go, well, I'm pretty calm now. I'm pretty ready to try and see what they mean. How about I hit play and listen to those drums from the perspective of them, that they believe that it's washed out and muddy? How could they come to that conclusion? And then you think really critically of how that could happen. You go, well, actually, maybe there's a lot of middle range frequencies that are messing with the guitars or the vocals or something like that. Maybe if I turn them down, maybe if I change this drum part and, did that, that's starting to sound a bit clearer. I can see what they mean. That's the awesome part about this, is once those emotions have cleared, you can then go in and start thinking really critically about what they mean and how you interpret it. You've been given a piece of advice, and now that you've just got the advice on its own without the emotional reaction to it, you can start really honing in on their perspective and being really open-minded about the idea that maybe their change could improve what you're doing, and maybe it won't, but you're still able to give it a crack and see if it's worth something to you to improve what you're doing. The next step is to respond. I think you should be really responsive when you're getting feedback, because it's vulnerable for us to ask. It's also really vulnerable for someone to, take your piece of work and have a really strong personal opinion about it to try and help you. We're both sort of really speaking to each other's egos. We have to be very delicate. So the best way, I think, is to respond in some way. What you want to do is, in any way possible, find some way to action what they've suggested from you. If you agree, you say, yes, I can actually hear where you're coming from. I've decided to make this change. What do you think now that I've improved it? And you've actually shown them the tangible difference between what you've done before and after. If you didn't feel like it worked, or you didn't understand, or it didn't work with this particular thing, you can say that. You can say, look, I didn't quite know what you meant in context to this project, but I'm really keen to action the points that you mentioned in the next thing that I do, or in this previous thing, I've tried it with that. There's something for you to action. Even if it's not here, it's later on. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be this specific thing if you're trying to build a relationship with someone and potentially ask them for feedback in the future. It's a lot easier to do that if they feel like you're listening to them and you're responding to them, and you're actually, going to try and, actually do the thing that they're suggesting. I think that's really important. It makes them feel like it's worth their time to keep, answering your questions when they keep coming back, because that's what you want at the end of the day. You don't want to just send one email. You might want to send 10 or 20 to this person over the span of a few years to really understand how to get better in the long term, as opposed to just this one project. The next thing is probably a separate thing, and that is it's okay to disagree as well. There was a point in my career where I was taking feedback on from people, and I was sending more stuff on, and I was taking in more opinions. And the better I got, and the more advice I took from other people, and the more I honed my own personal tastes and preferences, the more I could have the confidence to disagree with someone in that sense. You can try all those steps where you experiment with what they're talking about, think really critically through their lens, and you can go through all the steps and you might actually go, well, I can understand, but I actually don't want to action this. I don't want this to be part of my project. At the end of the day, if it's creative work that we're all doing, it is all subjective. There are things that are definitively better practice, but a lot of this is personal taste. So there are going to be times where we do disagree, where we do things differently or not by the book. But that's a totally different story to what feedback is, and that's a really, I think, intimate relationship between you and someone who's going to offer advice to you. That's a really important relationship as opposed to the end result. So I hope what happens after hearing this and maybe developing a bit of a framework for how you email and ask people for help, it becomes a bit less daunting when you can see what the process might look like, how you can be really assertive through all the steps of the email chain, whatever it is, or the phone call, and also how to give better feedback, because you learn what you want to hear from other people by asking people and getting their response as well. So this is all part of this process where eventually we want to pay it forward. So if you have a piece of work you want to send to me, like a podcast or a piece of music, I'm happy to give you feedback. I don't know if that's anything you would want, but after many years of being given feedback and constructive criticism from peers, I'm more than happy to pay it forward if it's of use to you.